Did we say Utah by 3? I think we meant to say 13. If you even got to watch the game, doesn't matter. We finally get to say it's Get Your Orange on Friday as the Purple Bears of Central Arkansas are finally making their way to Stillwater.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you very much for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. Appreciate you being here. We're available on every single podcasting platform as well as visually on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter at AllDayOState. The Purple Bears are arriving. The season is officially about to kick off, so make sure you got your orange on. It's a funky, fresh, feeling good Friday as we get prepared for Central Arkansas. We've already talked about how there's some similarities defensively in regards to how many guys have kind of come up through the system together. Of course, they're going to have a few transfers mixed in here and there, but their leading tackler on the season comes back. Their second leading tackler on the season comes back. All of their safeties have been playing together for a little while, so there's going to be some continuity. We've kind of discussed this in regards to what it looks like, for our wide receivers. And although I still definitely think that we should cover a couple names real quick, we're going to go to the offensive side of the ball. But a defensive back, it starts with James Jordan, going to be a good test. You look on the other side, they really like Cameron Godfrey. Tamarion Wilson is their second leading tackler on the season, and he's a dude who comes in at 6'2", 210 pounds. He's gonna be a problem. They have a transfer in Trey Green, 6 foot, 202 pounds from Arkansas State. They've also got some guys like Jalen Hodo, a transfer from Air Force Academy, that I think probably is going to be good enough to at least give us a little bit of a look. They've got Griffin Dyer. He's an Okie from the Tulsa area on the roster as well. So it could be a pretty good mixture. We know David Walker is going to give both Jake Springfield and Dalton Cooper all that they can handle. On the other side, Logan Jessup is a 6'3", 255-pound defensive end that's going to give Jake Springfield a little bit of a decent look as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they swap those two occasionally just to get a little bit of a different look. As far as defensive line goes, they've got some size. They've got some guys. I don't think it's going to be a big test for our offensive line, but it's going to be enough, right? It's going to be enough of a test to get a decent idea. But their linebacker, Demetrius Charles, is a savage, guys. He's a legitimate dude that we're going to have to pay attention to. Darren Davenport was somebody that's coming back for the 5th year, and he's an Arkansas guy. It means a lot to him, and he comes in at 6'2", 230, so he brings some ability, brings some size. Kadarius Moore, he's a big guy that they're looking to get a lot of PT out of this year, a lot of productivity. Jace Benish, he's a sophomore linebacker, 6 foot, 220 pounds. He's somebody who's going to factor in quite a bit into their game planning and what they're trying to get accomplished. Offensive line, I don't think anything stands out specifically other than the fact that for it being Central Arkansas, it would almost be safe to assume that their offensive line's not going to be as capable size-wise. But if you look down, they've got a guy 6'5", 310, 6'5", 302, 6'3", 310, 6'2", 290, 6'3", 310, 6'5", 302, 6'6", 310, 6'3", 295, 6'5", 340, 6'3", 310, 6'4", 310, 6'4", 300. They've got a decent amount of size, actually. That is surprising. It is, right? And then outside linebacker, Jake Galday, 6'4", 240 pounds, legit 4'6" guy. They're going to have some guys here and there that do give us some fits. But on the offensive side of the ball, it's all going to start with quarterback Will McElvain, who transferred in from Northern Iowa. He was an Iowa guy that we recruited, realistically speaking, coming up to the high school ranks. He threw for almost 3,000 yards his last year at Northern Iowa. Comes in, plays a little bit 2021. It's his thing last year. Starts in all 11 games. Again, puts up almost another 3,000 yards. He was able to rip apart a couple teams, threw for a 389 yards once, 350 some odd yards once, had a 4-touchdown game, 3-touchdown game. He's got some ability. He's got a little bit of mobility. He does have like a 70-yard touchdown to his name, but he's not the most prone to taking off. He's elusive. He'll stay in the pocket. He'll manipulate the pocket. He'll make some things happen, but you got to stop him, right? Because when you're talking about some of the offensive weapons that they have, those are some guys you're going to have to stop. We know that we have some depth at linebacker. We know we've got some talent on the defensive line. We're going to be tested because their running back, Darius Hale, almost put up 1,000 yards last year by himself at 5'11", 230 pounds. He's a problem. And then the guy right behind him, another returning guy, and Kylin James is 6 foot, 225 pounds. He's a problem as well. And then they brought in a transfer. The transfer was the Atlantic Sun, I think was the conference. Atlantic Sun, running back of the year, ran for 1,509 yards by himself, and ShunDerrick Powell. He's more the scat guy. They got two power guys. ShunDerrick Powell is 5'9", 180. He'll be rocking number 27. That three-headed monster at running back is, on paper and production-wise, better than our three-headed monster that we have at running back on paper. You and I both know it's not probably how it's going to shake out, but nonetheless, it's still going to be an issue. Tight end, transfer from Minnesota, 6'4", 235 pounds. Can't say his name, so I'm not going to butcher it. He is number 19. He's gonna be a decent test. Wide receiver, they got their leading receiver from last year, Jarrod Barnes, was an Arkansas transfer, 5'11", 190 pounds, speedster type of guy. Cam Robinson is another guy that they use quite a bit. Trustin Oliver, transfer from Colorado, 6'4", 220 pounds. Going to be a little bit of a matchup problem for some of our defensive backs. I do think Korie Black's going to thrive. Cam Smith is going to fit right in. These wide receivers are not going to be too big for him. They're not going to be more prepared than him. And then behind him, we're pretty good, right? We know we've got a little bit of depth there. Another guy, Tristan Edwards, I think is going to be a decent test for us. Excuse me. And then Trey Nelson, another 6'1", 180-pound transfer from the University of Arizona. These are the guys that I think we're going to have to pay attention to. So Cam Smith and Cameron Epps are going to get pretty good looks here. Korie Black's going to get a pretty good look here. Some of our linebackers are going to get a look. The defensive line, especially the nose tackles, whether it be Colin Clay, whether it be Justin Kirkland, heck, even if it's Aiden Kelly, even if you got Xavier Ross on the outside, you know what I think about Deshaun Brown. These are pretty good matchups for us. There's enough on the bone here, enough meat on the bone to get a decent test. Again, it starts with the quarterback, but the running back room is very impressive. They've got a lot of guys returning on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a few guys returning on the offensive side of the ball. They've got some size and strength up front on the offensive line of the ball. So should this be a whooping? To some degree, yes. Speaking of, and before we move on to ESPN and Disney completely screwing the pooch and dropping the ball right before a game, let's go over some other things to kind of pay attention to here. Sorry. Is Xavier Benson going to outperform Tamarian Wilson? Xavier Benson had 76 tackles last year, 36 solo, 4 tackles for loss. Tamarian Wilson had 104 tackles, 69 solo, and 6.5 tackles for loss. Is Colin Oliver going to be able to replicate what David Walker put on the field last year, which is 12 sacks? Colin Oliver had 5 sacks. Him moving to linebacker, I think this is kind of a disingenuous point. It could be more realistic to say maybe it's going to be a Nathan Latu. Could be a pretty good comparison. But guys, last time we played them, I'm sure everybody remembers Mason Rudolph going off for 401 yards. J.W. Walsh threw a touchdown pass, had some nice rushing yards as well. Slot receiver David Glidden went off for 145 yards, a couple touchdowns. The running game, we got to see a little peek of what Chris Carson could potentially be. It was, it was a little bit of a beatdown. Now, that team that we beat that day is not the same team that's rolling in here. A 32-8 W is going to be a little bit more difficult to come by this time. Now, so let's go check out real quick. Our buddies at Pistol Firing did put out some of their picks. And I'm intrigued to see what. So let's see. Marshall Scott has OSU winning 38-17. Decent analysis. Why? Kyle Cox 41-14. I like that. That's pretty good. I think it's Dakota Gregory 37-24. Okay. Interesting. Well, I'm going to stick with mine. What I say, 52-14, 56-14. This isn't going to be a super difficult game. But again, there's enough here to at least give us a run for our money. There's enough here to give us a certain number of guys a pretty good test. And in this last minute nature of finding out that obviously Oklahoma State doesn't have any availability for tickets, don't stress. There's always going to be times. There's always going to be opportunities. And Game Time has got you covered. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're stressing out about the ticket buying scenarios, don't do it, because Game Time is going to have you covered. Whether you're looking at a sporting event, music, comedy, theater, doesn't matter. Whatever you need last minute, they've got you covered. And most recently, like, I was able to look up the Denver Broncos had a game against the Rams. Rams have a couple Cowboys and Tanner Brown. And obviously, Jason Taylor the second. But yeah, you can buy tickets. I could get some super easy, right on the dot, $32, or I could go bougie, spend a little over $530 and get right up front on the 19-yard line, 30-yard line. Lowest price, guaranteed, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection as well. Forget planning months in ahead. Game Time is going to have the deals and tickets right up to the day of the event. They have exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, and theater. The Game Time guarantee means you'll get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section, in the same row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the differentiation. Snag your tickets today with no stress at Game Time. Download the app. You create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your very first purchase. Terms obviously apply. But again, create that account and redeem the code with LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Dear ESPN, you screwed the pooch here. Oh, shall I say Disney? So Charter Communications and Disney evidently could not come to an agreement up to an hour before kickoff of the biggest game in the preseason, whatever you want to call it, week 1, 0.5 kickoff. And, you know, we talked about Utah winning even with the backups because Bryson Barnes was going to have an entire month to prepare. Worked out pretty daggone well. I did think Florida would put up a little bit more of a fight. I didn't see them necessarily losing by 13 without Cam Rising. But 3 points, 13 points, it is what it is. We'll cover a little bit more of that. But did you get to watch the game? A lot of people in the Charter Communications area did not. And guys, Charter is the second biggest telecommunications company in the world next to Comcast, ahead of AT&T. This company covers 41 states. It's primarily out from, you know, Colorado, California, Utah, that area. But drum roll, Utah was playing in the daggone game. Like, this excluded a decent amount of Pac-12 country from watching this thing. And me living in Colorado, obviously, I didn't get to benefit either. So I had to, you know, finagle my way around it. I was able to watch, thankfully. But nonetheless, this is pretty telling, is it not? That ESPN Disney is refusing to pay basically market value. What I've read was that Charter Communications basically said, you're giving us numbers predicated upon X amount of viewership. But we know streaming is becoming a little bit more popular and the legacy channels are getting a little less important. Therefore, we're not paying you for last year's premium pricing. We're going to pay you for this year's pricing. Basically, Disney and ESPN said, nuh-uh, you're going to pay us full value. We don't care if the numbers have changed. We don't care if there's a dip in some of the legacy media validity, accuracy, whatever you want to call it. We want you to pay top dollar. And Charter's like, yeah, but why? What are we paying top dollar for if we know we're not going to get the same views and coverage as we did last year or the year prior to that? Guys, George Kliavkoff is a madman. But maybe he was onto something. He obviously went about it the wrong way. Tried to start a war with somebody that he was not prepared to go to war with, and Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner. But the whole negotiation thing, they kept pushing the goalposts back, and people kept speculating, well, maybe Amazon or Apple or something will step in, and the streaming stuff will be so big that nobody can say no. But then again, doesn't look so hot for the ACC now, does it? They're not going to have a bunch of negotiating money. ESPN already has them in a sweetheart deal. They don't want Stanford, smart. They don't want Cal, smart. Washington State, Oregon State, I guess some of that's still up in the air. But why would ESPN say, you know what? We're getting a very good deal right now. We get to get Florida State, Clemson, and I guess Sam Hartman when he was with Wake Forest on the cheap. And now we don't have a lot of money to be thrown around. ESPN had to lay off thousands of people. And if you watch some of the new ESPN stuff, obviously they were able to keep some of the main people around. But I was watching something the other day on ESPN with a couple random dudes and Sam Acho, former Texas defensive player. And it was okay, but it was not like it used to be. It used to be in-depth, and you had some personality. You had a good form of delivery, right? It was entertaining. It was insightful. It was a must-see. It's not anymore. And I can't recall what that ESPN show was I was watching the other day, or else I'd say it. But it had Sam Acho and a couple other dudes. And the presentation just wasn't great. The delivery, in my personal opinion, wasn't great. They didn't offer a lot of insight into why you should sway your decision one way or the other. It's not the same product. So although we in Big 12 country, we're very happy with our ESPN Fox current deal, we're very happy with the outlook on what it could potentially look like the next time we go into negotiations. If the Big 12 continues to have success and we continue to put ourselves in the national title conversation on a year-to-year basis, it's going to get better. But the question now is, what does the negotiations 25-26 look like? If ESPN and Disney are struggling this bad, and it doesn't appear as though Disney has any inclination to fix whatever issues they have going on, but it doesn't appear that it's going to get better, especially with this. Millions of people did not get to watch this football game because of a Disney dispute with Charter. And if that's true, if Charter's saying we're not going to pay your, flatline inflated price, we want to pay this price. Well, if Charter's accurate, then ESPN and Disney have no leverage. Well, I guess they technically do because they can do what they did and pull everything off the air. But is that how is that a good recipe for success? If you're ESPN, like, hey, we're going to pull this off the air so millions of people can't watch, and we're going to expect things to get better? Like, what are you doing? How many things are keeping ESPN afloat right now? Probably college football. I know NFL has their hand in some of the stuff as well, and it is a pretty big deal. But college football is like Christmas. This is what everybody waits for. Even if you don't like Utah, even if you don't like Florida, if you hate the SEC or you think the Pac-12 is even more irrelevant than we already know it is, regardless, it was a big game, and it was worth the watch. This was a wild time. So George Kliavkoff put the Pac-12 6 feet underground, but as the dirt was being thrown on top, he was hooting and hollering about, well, what about streaming? Linear is going to die someday. He might have been onto something. But have enough fear, because if that's the case, Brett Yormark hears it. He heard it. He's ready to hears it into bigger existence. I'm excited. You want to know who else is excited? Apparently Kirk Herbstreit. Because on game day a few days back, he picked Oklahoma State as the dark horse in the Big 12, and he's right. We don't always get love from Kirk Herbstreit, but he's right on the money here. I think Desmond Howard picked UCF, and Pat McAfee pulled, I don't know, you can't call it a home move. He picked West Virginia to be the dark horse to win the Big 12. Appreciate the spunk and the gusto, but, West Virginia is going to be a little bit better than people think. If they do launch the season correctly and take out an overrated Penn State, then sure. But usually, not always, usually when 99% of people are picking them to be bottom 3 on a pretty consistent basis, that's a big bell curve to try to swing around there. Guys, I think they're a pretty decent team that won't even win 6 games. So, Oklahoma State's more realistic. Heck, I don't think UCF is there. John Ross Plumlee's a good athlete. He's okay at throwing the ball. Their 2 deep is getting better, but it's not there yet. Out of those 3, Oklahoma State is the most logical choice. So good job, Kirk Herbstreit. Smart play. Had a way to get on the bandwagon of the Cowboys in 2023. He did mention our schedule, obviously playing into our favor, which is exactly why we have to take advantage of this. We may never get this level of 7 home games again. We may not get this level of traveling where it's warm for the last few games of the year. We don't have to go up north. That's pretty cool. It's going to be helpful, especially to the players. Travel, coaches, healing time, whatever. It is beneficial. So we got to capitalize. And if we do capitalize, people want to talk crap, but everybody knows the winner of the Big 12's likely into the Final Four. Worst case scenario, winner of Big 12 ends up like 5th place. And we do know that there's some lobbying and politicking that kind of happens, so it is a possibility, but I find it pretty unlikely. The Big 12 is going to cannibalize itself to some degree, but even in the cannibalization phase, somebody is going to rise to the top. Hopefully the cannibalization just isn't so bad that they all have 3 losses, kind of like K-State last year. K-State rolls into the Big 12 title game, figured out a lot of stuff, had a lot of injuries on the season, as multiple reports have already put out there. Guys, you can Google right here, right now, 2022 Kansas State injury list. And there's literally like 15 publications between Bleacher Report and the Topeka Journal and Covers.com, First Lads, Heartland, and it'll give you a synopsis of all the injuries K-State had throughout the season and the weeks that they got them. And when you combine all that, I understand people want to keep telling me that there was no issues other than just injuries. But, it's wrong. It's 100% bold-faced. It's a lie. Stop telling me what about the bull honky. I'm just kidding. You keep telling me. It's actually pretty fun. I love the back and forth. I love the dialogue. I obviously do learn new things on a daily basis. Hour to hour, you learn something new. So I appreciate all of you. You guys are awesome. Kirk Herbstreit, you're awesome too, bud. Appreciate you. All right. So now let's skim over what we talked about yesterday or last couple of days in regards to picks. Let's see here. How are we doing? All right. We begrudgingly picked USC. We picked Notre Dame. We picked San Diego State. Picked Vandy. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Picked Utah 5. Picked UCF 6. Picked NC State 7, who barely beat UConn, by the way. We picked Nebraska over Minnesota. That sucked. Nebraska pooped it away at the very end. So there's a loss. Mizzou, they won. Tulsa, they won. UAB, they won. Arizona State, they won barely. So we're what? What is that? I don't know, 8-1, something like that, 9-1. It's a pretty good start, but the meat and taters hadn't even got here yet. Meat and taters is tomorrow. And what's the first meat and tater? Today we get Miami. Yeah, they'll beat Miami, Ohio. Michigan State will beat Central Michigan. KU will beat Missouri State. Louisville will beat Georgia Tech. Stanford will beat Hawaii. And then tomorrow, Michigan over ECU, Tennessee over UVA, TCU over Colorado, barely. OU over Arkansas State, Iowa over Utah State. Actually, I have Utah State there, don't I? I have Utah State beating Iowa. Kentucky over Ball State. Some of the Big 12 teams. Iowa State over Northern. Is it Northern Illinois or Northern Iowa? I don't know. UNI. Texas over Rice. Boise over Washington State. We did talk about that. Auburn over UMass. Wisconsin over Buffalo. Notre Dame over Tennessee State. I got North Texas beating Cal. Cincy over East Carolina. Georgia will win. I would like to see Shane Illingworth do some stuff against USC. We got K-State winning. Hold on. Let me just go to Big 12. Go to Big 12. Big 12 only. Yeah, let's do that. All right. Yeah. TCU over Colorado. OU over Arkansas State. Iowa State over Northern Iowa. Then we got Texas over Rice. Cincinnati over KU. K-State over SEMO. Baylor over Texas State. Houston. Who did I have in that? Yeah, I got Houston barely beating UTSA. Obviously, we know our prediction at West Virginia, Penn State, Texas Tech, Wyoming. Robert Allen picked Wyoming to beat Texas Tech. I thought that was pretty interesting. BYU, San Jose State. Or not San Jose, Sam Houston. All right. Here we go. So we'll check back in on these picks. Obviously, tomorrow we will be going live post-game, and then we'll have our normal scheduled live show Sunday, the Sherman Snitchell Sunday show as well. All right. That's all we got for this one right here. So you know I love you. God bless. As always, go Pokes. And thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen. Again, we know you could be anywhere, but you're coming here, and I appreciate it. All right, y'all. Later, taters.